Beast, a film directed by Baltasar Kormákur. If you're unfamiliar with that name, he was the director of Contraband, which, contrary to most opinion, I actually really enjoyed Contraband. And if I remember correctly, he was also the director of the Two Guns films, also starring Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington. And I thought that film was funny, but kind of dull at the same time. Now we get Beast, which stars Idris Elba and Charlotte Copley, among a couple younger actresses. Now, to preface this review, I have to say, as a general personal opinion, whether it's a human, and especially if it pertains to animals, any kind of story that involves self-defense of one thing, I'm always ultimately going to be on that thing's side. I don't care if it's the protagonist, I don't care if it's the antagonist, I don't care if it's the third supporting character over there. Any form of self-defense in which somebody has intent or just in a location, like for an animal that doesn't know any better, and the animal just starts acting up violently, I'm always going to take the side of the animal and or the human acting in self-defense. Now, Beast is actually a very well-made, very well-directed film. I like Baltasar Kormákur's direction because he actually implements a lot of unique things in his films that I personally would do, like camera work, like one-shot sequences, just the imagery. He does a bit of imagery, especially whenever it's a violently bloody film. He doesn't exactly stay paused on imagery, which again, I do like, because I can't stand, especially horror films, they only focus on the gory, grotesque details. Don't get me wrong, a horror film, the spookiest thing that you can do in a horror film is basically just show a wall of imagery, of violent imagery, grotesque, but don't actually show bloody images or anything. Just kind of something that piques your interest and makes you wonder from ambiguity. Now, Beast does have some gory imagery, but that's okay because they don't fully linger on it. Beast is about an hour and 25 to 30 minutes of a film, and this isn't really a horror film. This is actually mostly a thriller, a survival thriller. Now, Beast is basically about a father and his two girls that go to their mother's homeland after she passes away from an illness, and Idris Elba is the father. He meets up with Charlotte Copley, an old friend of his and his ex-wife's, and in doing so, they end up going on a little bit of an adventure, just exploring Africa, looking at all of the beautiful creatures and animals and everything, and 95% of the animals are friendly, just because Idris Elba's friend Charlotte Copley is not a poacher. He's actually just kind of a human living in Africa, which personally I'd never do, because I just generally leave animals alone to their own habitat. I personally think it's selfish to involve yourself into an environment where an animal has laid its home and nested. That's just my personal opinion. Now, the story focuses on one lone lion that basically terrorizes and beats up anything that goes into its territory. Now, at the very beginning of this film, I had some strong doubts because I wasn't really too fond of the intro. I thought the intro was just kind of generically made. Overall, the story is bare bones generic, and by the end of it, it's a very cliche film, but it's some lines of written dialogue that are actually witty, set aside some expository lines that are very, very forced feeling, but the majority of the exposition actually feels fine in the writing. The acting is actually solidly well done. You know, veterans Idris Elba and Sharlto Copley. Sharlto Copley, I've always admired as an actor ever since District 9, which is one of, if not my all-time favorite sci-fi film. Idris Elba is basically like a Mark Wahlberg with a bit more versatility in his acting. But the thing is, Idris Elba, if he acts in every film just as himself, somehow he naturally just acts. And he's a great actor, even if he were to just do that. The likes of Mark Wahlberg can't do that because he just doesn't really have the range to be able to do that. I just don't think he's that good of an actor. Now, Idris Elba, under the helm of Baltasar Kormákur, I think was very solidly cast and very well done. And Sharlto Copley and the other supporting characters and actors and actresses, they all do a very well done job. My main gripes with Beast lie mostly in the story and the writing of it. There are lines of witty dialogue, and the dialogue is basically where I leave my praise at. The story is just a survival thriller, and it's literally just intervening into an outside animal's homeland, and the outside animal just attacks anything because it considers any of them his prey. And again, to preface, I'm a huge advocate and supporter of self-defense. I consider the beast's homeland to be like my apartment or my home. I don't care if you're friendly or an enemy. If you're on my property, you're going to respect me. But that's also like, if you're on my property, I also have the right to harm you if I don't want you on my property. That's how my opinion works with this kind of story. Now, Idris Elba's character, his family, and Sharlto Copley's character, all of their stories are actually endearing, but I'm extremely biased whenever it has animals involved. But that's not to say that every other character other than the animals are bad. They're actually pretty good, endearing characters. I just am a huge advocate and supporter of just leaving animals alone. End of story on that one. So overall for me, Beast is actually a lot better of a film than I expected it to be. I think overall it's a pretty good film. And also in the writing, I think what they should have done, being in Africa, not just in America, I think they should have had it more of foreign written lines of dialogue. Like the Shivenda or whatever the language was, they started talking in just a couple lines. Take, for example, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. 95% of its dialogue is just subtitles, and you have to read basically everything. That made it feel super authentic because you were watching a film about apes that had the brains of humans. Beast, I think that they should have implemented more foreign languages in Africa, and that just would have made it feel more authentic. But the camera work and the direction is already pretty authentic to me. So overall for me, I would say Beast is a solid 7 out of 10. It's pretty damn good, but there are a lot of things that keep it held back. Thank you.